Hi, this is Dr. Harvey, and welcome to the first week and the first topic of class, which will be entertainment in the digital age. So what I'm going to be asking you to do is to take some time over the next 2 weeks and think about some issues related to entertainment and how technology has sort of changed, and think about whether or not that's a good or a bad thing in terms of the way that it has changed entertainment. So to start, I want to first go over sort of the idea of critical thinking here that I'm asking you to take into account during the course. So critical thinking has to do with applying standards of thought to the things that you're thinking about. And I've got a graphic here that I provided about this. And that's just something to kind of keep in mind. And the thing I'm going to kind of concentrate on right now is the standards piece. And let me just explain what these things are on there. Clarity has to do with things like I might ask you after you've written your blogs to go through and do things like, and you can ask yourselves this as well as you write them, whether you could elaborate further on certain points. Could you express those points in other ways? And if you click on the link, you'll be able to check this out, where I'm getting this information from. Things like giving examples. Those all help to clarify what it is that you're speaking about and what your point is in your writing. Accuracy has to do with how true that is and whether or not you can fact check that information. So when you're thinking about the information that you're hearing or the claims that are being made in the pieces that you hear or you watch or you read, think about, can I check that out? Can I find out if that's really true? Or is there data to back up this information, or is it just an opinion? You want to look for precision. You want details, specificity of the information. Talk about relevance. How is it connected to the question? Is it really directly related to the issue at hand? So when you're talking about entertainment, you want to make sure you're not sort of going off on tangents. You want to look at the depth of the information, not only how accurate is it, but is it really dealing with the most significant factors? Is it really getting into the complexities of the issue? You want to look at things like breadth in terms of, has it considered other points of view, or is it just presented one point of view? And the same thing for your own writing. Are you just presenting your viewpoint, or are you also incorporating or answering some of the other viewpoints that might be valid in this case? That's an important piece there, is there has to be some validity to a stance. So you can't just simply take any crazy wild stance that you want. You have to sort of look at all those things, all the possible stances, but look at the ones that are sort of have some background, some depth to them, and that can be verified. You want to look at logic. Does it really make sense? Does it follow? Does your argument follow? And again, I will give you feedback on all this sort of thing. And then also fairness. Do you have some vested interest, or are you sort of just going with your own viewpoints or the ones that you're comfortable with? Or can you represent the viewpoints of others? Can you think about it from another perspective? So these are things I want you to kind of do as you go through, as you're reading this and thinking about the questions and the assertions that I give you. Try to think about these things, these standards of clarity, accuracy, relevance, logicalness, breadth, precision, significance, completeness, and fairness and depth. And so just kind of think about this. Again, this is going to be a process. Don't feel like you have to do all this in the first blog post or in the first assignment. My hope is that by the end of the course you will have gained more precision with this and a little more ability at thinking critically. I also happened to see this and hear, not see this, but hear this today when I was driving around before the snow. And this is actually a very interesting and timely topic. I wish I'd known it was going to happen before, and I would have had you listen to it today. But the title is, it's an NPR Radio Times segment about, are we too tied to our technology? And it discusses some really interesting research about social media and some thoughts that people have about technology in general and the way we're using it. So it's really neat. It's about an hour long. You can link here and you can get to the website for NPR. If you have iTunes, you can download podcasts and things like that. You're free to do that. But if you go to this website, you'll be able to check out and listen to the podcast from today. And it's just an interesting one. You can listen to this while you're doing other things, and or while you have a snow day. So just check it out. It's not directly tied to the topic that we're discussing this week, but it does give a pretty good and an interesting idea of some of the thoughts that people have about social media. I just thought it was particularly timely for this course. So you can check that out, more for your edification and your own thought process. And it's also kind of good because it does talk some about the critical thinking piece, in terms of, it presents issues, it presents different sides of issues. So it's a pretty good model to have just as we start the course. So I just thought it would be an interesting thing for you to listen to. Now, what you're going to do, and what I'm going to ask you to do in almost all these cases for all these topics, is I'm going to provide these Symbaloo links. Symbaloo is simply a bookmarking tool that's on the internet that I use, and it's fun. I like it because it has a visual interface. It's a little simpler to manage, and it's just I think an interesting way to do bookmarks instead of just text. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is look at these links and look at the resources that are there. Some of them are podcasts, some of them are web pages, some of them are actually websites of like Jimmy Fallon or an online web channel called Geek and Sundry. And what I'm going to ask you to do is go through, and I'll talk about why and what I want you to do at each of these places. And then, based off of that, you're going to use the kind of things that you think about and you learn there to inform your work in the group discussion and for that Circle of Voices activity, which I'll talk about at the end here. And I want you to start thinking about that blog entry. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to address this assertion, which is technology has greatly expanded the entertainment choices available to consumers. This has been a positive change for the consumer and enhanced their entertainment experiences. So what I'm asking you to do is respond to that assertion. I've made an assertion that this is a positive thing, having more choices because of technology, and that's enhanced entertainment for people. And what I want you to do is respond to that. I want you to agree or disagree with it, basically. Don't dodge it. In other words, don't say it depends or I sort of see both sides, things like that. Try to come to a stance on it. It doesn't have to necessarily be, I absolutely agree with this or I absolutely disagree. It can have some nuance to it. But what I want you to do is make sure you discuss all aspects of the topic and try to resolve those questions for yourself. And try to make an honest determination of where you stand in terms of that assertion, whether or not you agree with it or you disagree with it. And we'll see how it goes. Again, I'm not going to be too harsh this first time. I'm just going to give you feedback on what you write. So here's the first Symbaloo, and let me just kind of click through the links. And you should see this too. If you don't, let me know if you're having any problems with it. But when you click on a link, it should take you to that website. And so this first one is just a really short 4-minute audio file that has to do with streaming services in a way that they're changing our TV viewing habits. So it's just an interesting way to get started. A lot of you in your introductory blogs talked about things like Netflix and how everybody can watch TV on their phones or on their devices or on a computer. And I just thought it would be an interesting way to start the topic, to just listen to some people talk about the ways that technology has changed TV watching. Next, if you go down to the next one, this is just a website. I'm not going to ask you to do anything super specific here. I just want you to take a look at some of the things that this talks about. And they're basically talking about the way the internet has changed TV. And they talk about things like HBO's not using a cable TV subscription anymore, that you can actually get it without being part of the cable channel or cable service providers. They talk about Android TV and all kinds of different things. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at this And just kind of go through and just look at some of the kinds of stories they have and some of the things that are coming along in terms of completely using the internet as your television venue. The HuffingtonPost.com has a pretty good article here about how Twitter is changing television and how Twitter sort of become a part of television watching and viewing, and is something that the business side of television has to take into account. This is an interesting side, or takes a little different perspective about it and says, okay, as much as the Netflix model has changed things, maybe it hasn't changed things all that much. And they talk about how there's some different delivery systems have come along before and what they've done. So it's just an interesting difference of opinion than a lot of the other articles about Netflix. This one is it's the Late Night with Jimmy Fallon website. I want you to just take a look at it as a model of sort of how these changes have happened and how we've kind of created this mashup of different kinds of entertainment mediums. And I think this is a really neat and interesting way to look at it, because they've incorporated all these short video pieces that they throw up on the web. They've got some music links here because they use music heavily. There's a big social media piece of this. There's some games built into this. It's just a very interesting thing that that the Tonight Show seems to have really tapped into the use of social media as part of the entertainment and television viewing experience. So, and I just think it's an interesting thing to take a look at it as a model. I've got some links here about the way that Apple has changed the music industry, which is just a good informational and historical piece. Then I've also got a link here to the twitmusic.com site, which talks about the way that Twitter has changed the way that we consume music and find out about music and things like that. And they have a Discover Artist page. So again, I just want you to look at these things as examples. This link here is a little more dense. This is actually... Let me try this again. I will fix that link before we get started on this. But here, let me just open up a new window. That link will go to this or to a similar place where you can see this. Nielsen Entertainment puts out a music report. Nielsen does the TV ratings and some other things for the country. And this is just an interesting look at how we've consumed music for 2014 and some of the impacts of that. And they talk about how the sales are down a little bit. They talk about some overall trends, and they give you a lot of data. I'm not going to ask you to memorize all the data, but it's an interesting thing to take a look at, sort of how this information breaks down. And so I'd like you to kind of go through and just look at some of the reports and some of the information that's in here. It's pretty short. It's not real long, but it talks about some of what the best-selling albums were, and then sort of also talks about how people got into those, and they talk about sort of how sales went, how many digital tracks were sold in comparison to previous year, how CDs sold, how LPs sold, which is an interesting trend, and just to give you some background detail and some data to look at. This link is a little slow. It's the Academy of Web Television. So again, it's just they give out awards every year to the best web-based series. So this is an interesting thing to take a look at, because what's starting to happen is people are starting to sort of just go straight to the internet and just go to the web and watch their TV that way. So it just sort of shows you the differences in the way that some people choose to get their entertainment. What's trending.com has the top 14 YouTube trends of 2014. So again, that's just another example to look at, to think about. There's a podcast here about video games, and video games as entertainment is certainly another aspect of this topic. Geek and Sundry is a web channel for a very specific kind of audience that has to do with games and different things that are sort of part of what's called the geek culture. Again, what I think is important here isn't necessarily that you like these particular things, but rather that it shows you this idea that there are people making money and providing entertainment totally directly to consumers, as opposed to having to go through a network channel. And I just think it's a very interesting trend in entertainment that I'd like you to kind of consider and just take a look at. Here's another link to a BBC article, a British article about video games as an industry. Here's one from IGN, which is a game magazine and website. And they talk about whether video games are the ultimate entertainment medium. So again, I'm not saying you have to agree with this, but I want you just to look at and consider some of the ideas that are being presented about entertainment. And the last link is to deadline.com. Let me just scroll through that. And they talk about mobile as the future of entertainment, which is a very interesting concept. And I've noticed this around some people that I know as well, including my kids, where they will watch shows on their phones. And there is this idea that perhaps, the phone, which again, many of you talked about in your introductory blogs, that the phone has sort of become the nexus of entertainment and pretty much your entire social life. And so it's a very interesting concept that we would start thinking about, and that companies would start thinking about, going directly to your phone with the entertainment. And so in other words, they would build things with that in mind. So it might be making sure that it looks really good in a small screen. It might be making sure that it can be delivered in small packets, so that your data is not killed in terms of the data stream. And these kinds of things are, I think, very interesting possibilities for the future. So you can take a look at this as well, just as an idea and a thought piece. So when you're done looking at those links and you've had a chance to sort of digest those things and think about those a little bit, I suggest you want to do this by the 30th of January. Then you're going to go back out to your discussion boards. You don't see it the same way I do, because I'm in the instructor view right now. But let me just show you. What this is going to look like. So when you go into your discussion group and you open up your discussion group, you'll only see your own group. Obviously, you'll go to your discussion board and you'll see Digital Discourse 1 as an option. And when you click on that, you're going to go in here and you're going to see just the Entertainment and Digital Age link. And within that, I've provided the circle of voices. This is just an activity. You can do this in class, and now I'm trying to adapt it to the online piece. So the idea is you start with just a dialogue as to how have your own entertainment habits changed over time, and how do they compare with those of previous generations in your family. So you want to think about how your own entertainment habits have changed. So in my case, when I was a kid, we had 4 channels. Well, maybe 6 if we were lucky. And if we can get the rabbit eaters to look right. And so the idea was that we only had a certain limit of choices in terms of television. By the time I hit college and after college, cable had come along, and now we had a ton of choices. But although we still sort of watched TV at a certain time because everything was scheduled, now that we have on demand and we've got Netflix and I've got the ability to use my computer or use my phone or use my iPad to watch things, I find that I'm not scheduling my world around television anymore. That my entertainment is sort of on my time and when I want to do that. So this has changed. I mean, this is very different now. My parents' generation, they didn't have much television at all. My dad's, when he was a kid, his family. There was one television on a block. So if there was a big event that was going to be on television, everybody went to this one person's house and they watched it. They were big into movies. They were big into dancing. They were big into many different things that were not as big a part of my life. I still would like to go to movies, but I'm not as enamored of those. I've got a lot of other choices. So it's just an interesting thing that I want you guys to think about, and I want you to talk about that. And I want you to talk about it in terms of the things that you're learning by looking at the Symbaloo links and by considering some of those critical thinking standards as well. And just kind of think about that and talk about that some. And what I want you to do is I want you all to post your own independent thoughts to the questions between 9 and midnight on the 30th. Don't read or respond to anybody else's posts until the next day, until the 31st. And the idea there is I want everybody to have a chance to say their piece and get things started. From the 31st to the 3rd of February, from the 31st of January to the 3rd of February, you can only post a reaction to the ideas of someone else. So you can't talk about your own ideas again. Only if somebody's asked you to expand on them could you do that. Otherwise, you want to talk about everybody else's ideas. And you want to just post your reaction to those. Again, be honest, be fair, be fair-minded, be considerate of other views if they're dissimilar to your own. And if they're similar to your own, try to ask for some more clarification. So again, we're trying to sort of mold or model those critical thinking standards. So think about some of the things I talked about. If you want to look at that link again for critical thinking standards, you can do that. And that'll give you some ideas of some of the questions you might ask as a follow-up. And then you should react to at least 2 other group members. I'd encourage you to kind of react to everybody else's thoughts, just because I think that creates a better discussion. That discussion is going to end at midnight on 2/3. Then you're going to take what you learned from that, and you're going to include that in your individual blog entry if it helps. And so for your individual blog entry, remember you're going to respond to my assertion about technology having changed entertainment for the better in terms of your choices and the entire entertainment experience. So good luck. Have fun with this. I hope everybody's safe and sound with the storm coming in. And if you have any questions, make sure you get a hold of me. You can feel free to email me or call me. You can email me here inside of Blackboard. You can try to call me using that Google Voice number I have on the syllabus. If you really need to, or if you're really concerned about something and you want to get a hold of me through my Stockton email, that's fine as well. So again, good luck, and I will look forward to hearing what you have to say about this topic. Thanks.